Homemaking advice from 1975. I found a book and I want to share it with you guys. It's called The Joy of Housekeeping by Ella Mae Miller. Apparently, she had a radio show called Heart to Heart, and she gave homemaking advice. And I do collect vintage homemaker books. So a lot of them are more kitchen and cooking oriented. But some of the ones that I have are homemaking manuals like this one. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I don't think would pass through any publisher today. And a lot of it is very practical and wonderful advice. It's given in a very heart-to-heart direct manner, which I think is great. So I wanted to go through and read some excerpts, things I think that are useful, things I think are kind of funny, and one part that definitely kind of made me raise my eyebrows. We're going to start off strong with the first chapter, and the title of the chapter is Accept Your Role, which will probably ruffle feathers right from the very beginning, but let's see what Miss Ella has to say. You suddenly are very much aware of a role change. Yesterday, you were planning your own day, making your decisions, scheduling the day according to your job, spending your own money for what you wanted, eating on the run, getting to bed at irregular times, traipsing over to Sally's house on impulse. You've worked through personhood, accepted yourself as a female with unique female biology. Glands, organs, designed so you can one day conceive a child, nurse it, and tenderly care for it. Today you live with another adult, one of the opposite sex with different lifestyle, thought patterns, unique physical and biological needs. Someone else to consider at mealtime, at bedtime, when you spend money or have the impulse to leave the house. You've discovered a completely new lifestyle, no longer one but two, with the goal of oneness in purpose, goals, and schedules. Not oneness in personality, but oneness in lifestyle. You are a wife. Together, you and your husband face the daily situations and daily demands. You are learning what needs to be done, what each one's schedule is, abilities, likes, and dislikes. You plan how to meet each other's emotional, physical, mental, and social needs. You enjoy making him joyful. In return, he meets your needs. You experience joys and pleasures, some conflicts, but you resolve them together. That's the opener to the book. Strong start. I disagree with nothing in there. So, A+ on the opening to the book. Then she has a chapter on scheduling and how to use a schedule to be a more efficient homemaker. I am really big on having a schedule. I will do a video on scheduling, but she basically gives a lot of the same advice that I would give, in that she doesn't give a schedule in this book. She says you need to figure it out on your own by going through what your daily needs are. I think this whole chapter is just A+. I will read just a short excerpt from it. Proper housekeeping requires discipline on your part. Written schedules will aid you in this. When housekeeping becomes automatic, this may be dropped, but that's no license for becoming apathetic. Not at all. You continue to find new and better ways. This helps keep you young. What are your recommendations, you ask? No exact ones can be made since every home and family situation is different. Perfect. Again, 100% agree. You have to come up with something that works for your own family. Then we have a section on how to clean rooms, and she gives advice for basic tidying without getting distracted and all that kind of stuff. But she has a section at the end for family help. So this is getting help for bigger tasks. There are some jobs that most women just can't handle themselves, such as pulling out the stove and refrigerator, moving heavy furniture, flipping mattresses. These I don't know if you guys could hear that truck. That was very loud. Anyway, big jobs. A neighbor or relative might be available, but often your husband is the one you will need to help get the job done. Let it be pleasant. Make the job something he doesn't mind helping you with. If you nag him about it, he won't really enjoy helping you. But if you are considerate of his schedule and tender of your request, he'll be much more willing to offer a hand. And let him know you appreciate his help. Oh, my dog is going to make noise now too. I have filmed this so many times, you guys. The dog's making noise. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know why this would be offensive today, but for some reason it is. Anytime I have brought this up to people or I see other women bring this up to other women, it's a huge point of contention that While women expect their husbands to be kind and considerate when speaking to them, they do not have the same expectation of themselves of being kind and considerate to their husbands when they make requests. Again, I am so sorry my dog is noisy. I am sure my microphone's going to pick that up. It's fine. This is a real working house, you guys. I don't have a studio. Then she goes into keeping an attractive home, so a whole chapter on making your home attractive. And by the way, she does not think that you need to spend a ton of money to do this. She goes over very practical tips. So I think this chapter is great, still totally worth reading in 2023. But she does have a section in here on the attractive you. I can't conclude this chapter without mentioning the attractive you. Your house may be neatly groomed with adequate storage space, lovely furnishings, and appropriate accessories, but a grimy and disorderly housewife can spoil the lovely appearance. I'm not suggesting you go around all day dressed in party clothes, not at all, but after you finish the dirty work, scrubbing, sweeping, cleaning, or working outside, dress neatly. Your family will love you for it. I will shout this from the rooftops. If you stay at home, you need to get up and get dressed and ready every day. Now that's going to look different for each person. I'm not suggesting you need to wear a dress and do a full face of makeup. That's just what I prefer doing. Most days I do wear dresses now as I've slowly built up my wardrobe, but I digress. Get up and get ready. Have a homemaker uniform that you put on, so to speak, and something that if you need to answer the door, you're not going to be embarrassed. Now, granted, if you think that going to the store in your pajamas is appropriate, then maybe a couple steps up from what you would be embarrassed to answer the door in, but another subject for another day. Getting ready is for yourself in so many ways. It really does help you to be more motivated and to keep on task because you have purposefully gotten yourself ready for the day, just like any other job, because homemaking is a job. But it also is something that your family will appreciate. Your children will see that you take care of yourself, which is huge for children. Kids need to see that you take care of yourself as well. And it's also for your spouse. My husband loves it when I freshen up and I look nice before he walks in the door. It's considerate. Is he dirty and grimy when he walks in the door? Yes, because he's been working 10 to 12 hours in a hot and grimy place. But I look nice and neat and I'm ready to greet him with a smile on my face. And he is so appreciative of that, and he tells me that he's appreciative of that. Apparently that word is hard for me today. Now, there was a section in here that definitely made me raise my eyebrows. I'll just read it for you and we'll talk about it after. So this is in a section about creative cooking. The wife will want to prepare the foods her husband enjoys. So I don't disagree with that part, this first sentence, but we're going to keep going. The story is told that a starry-eyed bride of a few weeks wanted to prepare a delicious breakfast. She arose early and worked hard. After 20 dirty pans, she had prepared a fancy breakfast for two. Breakfast consisted of apple candy muffins supreme, a fluffy, puffy omelet with fruit sauces, a dish called chipped beef en route, or en roux, I don't know, decorated with stars cut out of pimento. She dolled up the grapefruit with maraschino cherries, mint leaves, and marshmallows, then set the table and called her husband. He was less than enthused than she as he looked at the pretty breakfast. Then in a tone of voice she had never heard before, he said, "Darling, I love you. You had a nice idea, but any idiot knows that a man wants bacon and eggs for breakfast, not this tea room stuff." Naturally, the bride left the table in tears, but she was a wise woman. She learned not to waste her time and energy in preparing food her husband didn't enjoy eating. This should go without saying also, please don't call your wife an idiot. There's much more loving ways to say that you don't like something that someone has cooked for you than that. So maybe let's not use that as an example. Like, I am not one for people having to speak to me like I'm a delicate flower. I'm a pretty blunt person myself, but that's a bit much. But honestly, in this whole book, that was probably the worst thing in here. There are some other mentions of men correcting women. But honestly, they're just saying like common sense things, but this was genuinely rude. So I do not put my stamp of approval on that section of this book if you happen to read it. But moving on from that interesting thing, there is a section in here on home safety. So some of it is not as pertinent today as it was in the 70s. Some of it is perennially pertinent, like keeping chemicals away from your kids. It has a section talking about emotional and spiritual safety. Are you aware of your actions and attitudes that may prove disastrous to your children's mental health? Are you content, happy, understanding, loving, or do caustic words, complaining, loud speaking, or anger leave lifetime marks on his character? So your child's character. People will say that in ye olden days, people did not treat their children very well, and while that may have been true in homes, maybe a lot of homes, there were definitely people that were preaching about being kind and considerate to your children. And I'm a big believer in that. I actually have an issue with anger and speaking sharply. And for my children, I have made considerable strides in that area so that I don't leave that long-term damage on them because I cannot control my own passions. I thought that was a really great little excerpt in there, especially for this being an older book, because people don't often consider that older books would have something like that in it. We go on to talk about cooperation in the home. So this is the part about the whole family cooperating in homemaking. So this book definitely does say that if you are a wife, your main job is the home, but it does say that your family should cooperate in that job with you. This section is entitled Love is the Root. Love is the root of cooperation. This motivates interaction. It's only natural for each to have those areas in which he or she assumes responsibility. But it's unfortunate when husband and wife have stereotyped ideas of the other one's roles, and there dare be no crossing over the boundaries. And then she gives some examples. So a husband who sits in his easy chair and scolds his wife because the meal isn't done on time, because the children are under her feet, but he doesn't get up to entertain the children or to help her in the kitchen. And the author is saying that's not good behavior. A wife who sees that a husband is struggling with his job, but instead of helping him in any way that she can or encouraging him, she decides she's just going to go off and read a novel by herself. So I thought this section was just, again, genuinely surprising because people have this idea that in ye olden days, wives were homemakers, husbands worked, and nary the two paths should cross. And that just wasn't true because homes were still homes just like today. And while I am the primary homemaker, my husband is more than happy to help out with laundry. That's generally what we do on Saturdays when we do our family tidy. We will run through a bunch of laundry, and he is more than happy to help fold clothes because he actually enjoys folding clothes. He puts in an audiobook and folds clothes. You know, and that's fine. That doesn't make me less of a homemaker, and it doesn't make him less of a husband. We're cooperating in keeping the home running. Then we go to, again, children. So a little bit of parenting advice in here. The toddler enjoys doing things for you as parents. You're proud that he brings his shoes to you and puts them on his feet or places them in the closet where they belong. But what about in the evening when you want to tidy up the room? His daddy's coming home any minute. Then there'll be supper, fun time, and his bedtime. So you ask Teddy, age 2, to please pick up the toys. He doesn't hear and continues to play, nor does he respond the second time you mention it. Then it's time to suggest by saying, let's pick up your toys. I'll help you. If you do this in love, he'll sense your feeling and want to help you. You can laugh with him and talk about daddy coming home soon as together you put the toys away. If, on the other hand, you lecture about those being his toys, not yours, and how ugly the floor looks, he'll be less apt to pick them up. He isn't able to understand the meaning of personal property. Getting irritated at him for not picking up the toys isn't teaching cooperation, but doing it together in a happy mood is. At a later age, he may need some form of discipline to help learn to obey and take responsibility. But at an early age, children want to cooperate. They enjoy doing things with mom and dad. Very early, they catch the meaning of cooperation. This is good. It's important to life. Again, absolutely great advice. 1975, still pertinent today. still great. And then in her last section here is why bother? Why bother with being a homemaker? And it talks about choice. And this is something that I see come up a lot when feminists will comment on homemaker things. They will say this is great if it's a choice, but nobody should be forced to be a homemaker. I'm not out there trying to push women into aprons. So I think that goes without saying. But she talks about how the choices you make and the attitude that you take affects how you are as a homemaker. Many women are asking these questions, and she means like, why bother? Why be a homemaker? For some, the answer is to avoid marriage and motherhood. Others choose wifehood and motherhood with some reservations. They continue pretty much their own life. Homemaking for them is merely a sideline. Some choose homemaking, but gripe all day long. I'm stuck between these four walls. I'm wasting my talents, if only. Others try various means of escapism, excessive phone calls, hours watching TV, radio serials, outside activities, alcoholism. Some enter into marriage purely on a business-like basis. I'll only do my share. I'll demand equal rights. No husband or children will monopolize my time and talents. And I've definitely heard that attitude online. She continues in a subsection called Covenant of Love. Other homemakers accept marriage and parenthood as a covenant of love, not merely a legal contract. Love cheerfully does with her might what her hands might do. Work is love made visible, speaks the poet Gibran. Love enjoys what you are doing as you do it. So I really loved that part. It does continue a little bit into perspective and why be a homemaker and specifically children. So I want to read a little bit of that because I still think it's very pertinent advice for today. Unfortunately, the modern American girl is a stranger to it. Untrained and lacking the skills, she's swamped after marriage. She's fearful and unsure of herself. She makes mistakes. She hates to reveal her inadequacies. She's often unaware of its importance, so abandons it for greener pastures. The mature woman finds freedom within the limits of her choice. Persons who elect to play the maternal role must accept some restrictions on their activities. To combine child care successfully with a second career requires either a stable mother substitute in the home or a job that can be pursued in the home or on a part-time basis. Biology does place role restrictions on women, but it is not the biology of the women themselves. It is the biologically based emotional needs of children that are demanding and undeniable. Becky senses her children's needs. It is so tempting to go out and get a job when all your neighbors are doing it, but then I think of my 3 children, ages 11, 9, and 6. I see so many unhappy, confused children today because their parents are too busy with their own lives and interests. They don't consider their children's wants and feelings important because they are children. I try to treat my children's feelings with respect and concern. You may be involved in a part-time career, in voluntary service, in church or community activities. Good, but give priority to your choice of homemaker, man's helpmeet, and mother of your children. After you have met these responsibilities, and they do change with varying ages and stages of the family, you can give more of yourself to other areas. When mother is there to share, to listen, and to care, children enjoy coming home, enjoy bringing their friends. They find security and warmth in her presence. When she relinquishes her homemaking duties, the family is unhappy. So I still find that to be really true. And it is a hard thing to talk about. It is a subject that I tread very lightly with, but I do think that homemaking and being home is really important to children. And my husband and I both felt that way when we got married, and that's why I've stayed home ever since we had children. So, again, 1975, a lot of people would poo-poo the advice that is in here, but there is wisdom in the past, and there's wisdom in the way that things have, quote-unquote, always been done. This book is not suggesting that you need to dress in a pretty dress and traipse around your house in heels all day and pearls. This is a practical manual for how to be a homemaker and how to be a wife who is attentive to her family and to herself. This mentions self-care in here multiple times, and parenting. Like this, I wish that people would look on the past with a little bit more courtesy and respect for realizing that things did work, and that people weren't crazy in 1975 or 1945 or 1890. There are things that we can learn from every era. This was really fun. I have some other vintage homemaking books if this is something that you guys are interested in. Let me know in the comments what you found interesting that was in here, and if you disagreed with any of it. So again, happy homemaking, and I'll see you next time.